Hey guys, welcome to the second video in our Pronage part guide series, which wasn't taken from PC Part Picker, totally not. If you haven't seen the first video yet, I highly recommend doing so by going to the first entry in our new Pronage part guide playlist. The video is about a PC half the price of this one, so if you're tight on money, go for it. Before we get to the build guide, be sure to check your wallet because a lot of these builds will eat away at your wallet faster than a Steam summer sale. Oh yeah, and please note that when you build a PC, you are taking responsibility for when it breaks or when a broken part comes in, so be warned. For the CPU, I went with the Intel Core i3-4150 at $104. In general, whenever you have the chance to get a pretty decent Intel processor, always go for it. This CPU is kind of a quad core, but it's actually a dual core in reality. But since it is read as a quad core, it can act as a quad core pretty well, which means quad-threaded games will run very well on this chip. In conclusion, this processor is pretty good for the price and won't bottleneck anything we're going to put in this build. For the motherboard, I went with the Asus H81M D+ Micro ATX at $44. There isn't much to say about this motherboard. It supports the CPU we're putting in. It's compatible with up to 16GB of RAM and has a single PCIe x16 slot, which makes it very good for the price. It does what it's supposed to do and nothing else. No extra stuff and just the stuff that matters. For the memory, I went with the Corsair XMS 8GB of DDR3 1600 RAM at $60. Budget builds are budget because they tend to skimp on parts in every place possible, excluding the processor and your graphics card, all while being enough for its purpose. This is the best thing about this single channel RAM. It's a single stick of 1600 and it has 8GB of RAM, in which both of those are standard in today's gaming world. If you want to upgrade the RAM to suit future standards, you can upgrade to 16GB of RAM by adding an extra one of these to the build via the other RAM slot. Just make sure you aren't late to the game. But yeah, in general, this is very good for $60. For the storage, I went with the Hitachi Ultrastar 1TB of 7200 RPM HDD at $44. A very underrated but very important part of the gaming build is the amount of storage in which the gaming build comes with. In a world where games usually require 10 to 30 gigabytes of space just to get them onto your computer, you need a ton of space. Especially if you're hosting a huge library of games like many Steam users do, kind of including myself. 1TB HDD is the thing you need. Take it from someone who uses a 1TB HDD. I have about 33 Steam games stored on my HDD, and I still have over half of my storage still open. My point is, this is cheap and huge, especially for the price point. For the case, I went with the Raiden Max ATX 249B ATX Mid Tower at $20. A great thing about this case is it does everything a case should do and more. It supports three 3.5-inch drive bays, it's very large, and has a steel/plastic composition. While this is in no way a great case for your PC, it'll do for the amount of money you have and the expandability it offers. For the power supply, I went with the EVGA 600P 600-watt 80 plus bronze PSU at $30. When you build a system that will game and will be at high load all the time, along with potential overclocking, you need to go above and beyond the recommended power supply for your system. This is mainly because overclocking actually increases the wattage your PC uses. I chose the 600 watt version of the EVGA PSU mainly because of this. It's also reasonably priced considering its quality. I also must add that if you prefer another brand of power supply, go right ahead. I'm pretty sure Corsair is good, though I'm personally recommend the EVGA because my friend personally uses an EVGA power supply and he hasn't had any problems. Same for other people. For the graphics card, I chose the Zotac GeForce GTX 960 2GB graphics card at $200. The great thing about this being, in 2015, the GTX 660 exists. It's a completely new card, and by completely new, I mean completely new, that sort of combines the overclocking power and price of the 750 Ti and puts a tinge of 970 into the mix to make what is this card. Just like other Maxwell cards, this graphics card is a great overclocker, And if you want to push your card's performance just a little bit more to keep that sweet 60 FPS, you can. Not only that, but its price tag is rather reasonable at $200. To sum it up, it's basically high performance for less. The total for this build is $503 after rebates and shipping. It's slightly over the budget, but when you are buying something this large, it usually doesn't matter that much. The build is solid, and it isn't likely to break if you know what you're doing, and its gaming performance is outstanding for the price. It's definitely better than a console. If you want to upgrade or change some of the parts in this build to better suit your needs, you can, in fact. Here are some of the mods that I've come up with. First is the compactor. The mod is exactly what it sounds like. You replace the motherboard in the case with the smaller mini ITX versions and slap in a smaller 960 if needed. For this build, you can change the Asus motherboard for $44 to a smaller ASRock H81M ITX for $59, along with replacing the Raidmax ATX mid-tower for $20 with a Core Master Elite 130 for $32, along with a smaller GPU, which won't cost you anything more, with a price increase of around $27. For the second one, I've got the Number Cruncher. This mod is extremely simple. If you aren't satisfied with the performance of the i3-4150 for $104, you can replace it with a considerably better processor, the i5-4690K at $220, for a price increase of $116 for an extra 2 cores, along with better clock modification and speed. You may want this to shorten rendering times if you are doing a YouTube thing. The third and final mod for this build is the overclocker. This mod is meant to improve the build's overclocking abilities, namely by replacing the case for better airflow, getting an unlocked processor, adding an aftermarket core, getting a larger motherboard, and adding RAM with good heat spreaders. The processor added will be the Intel Core i7-4820K. As the K implies, it is easy and safer to overclock with this processor as it has an unlocked clock multiplier. The aftermarket core will be the Core Master V8 GTS. It looks good, it's said to be fairly quiet, and cools the processor very well. The big problem is, it's huge, and it's expensive, which is where our case comes in. The case added will be the Core Master Stormtrooper ATX case. Its size is amazing, which will help with the V8. Its color also matches the V8, which adds a cool factor to the build, you could say. It also has tons of fans, which can be configured to be on or off depending on where you want the air to flow. To make use of this case's space, we'll also be adding the MSI Big Bang X-Power 2 Extra Large ATX motherboard. This comes with 4A SLI, which allows for further expansion when needed, and is very large, which is going to be useful in using both Core Master products in this build. Finally, the RAM we have the G-Skill Trident X series of 8GB of 2800 MHz DDR3 RAM. For overclocking, it includes a heat spreader and also comes with a huge clock rate, which we can overclock later. Finally, the grand total upgrade cost is a whopping $852. You heard me right. Now we've finally got that one out of the way. At least it's a decent overclocker. That's it for the $500 budget GTX 960 build. Be sure to like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you want to support me and my channel. It helps a lot. I would also appreciate if you gave me a little bit of criticism on my builds, as every time you give me criticism, I can build off of that criticism and improve the builds I make. I would appreciate it. Now have a good day, man.